Emergencies Act. This, as Tamara has said, will be the first time that it's been used. It's the modern version of the War Measures Act, as I understand it, that Justin Trudeau's father invoked many decades ago, and which of course caused a lot of problems because once again it was a very broad application of an act which really applied even at that time to one province. And so we are again in 2022 looking at a situation, especially as it relates to to prove that this really is necessary to apply to the capital city and to this convoy. We have tried, and I'm speaking on behalf of the truckers now, we have tried very hard to ensure that we are doing things peacefully and that we are exercising our civil disobedience and our rights to civil disobedience. And even over the last number of days, those rights must be respected. The other thing is, as some of you may not know, in invoking the Act, the new War Measures Act, the government, after it declares this, must go to Parliament and must pass this through Parliament. They have 7 days, I think, to 7 days to present the matter to the Parliament, and both the Senate and the House of Commons have to vote on it after a debate in the Parliament. And that this is again a government overreach. We don't do these kind of things in Canada. We engage in dialogue. And it is my understanding that the government of Canada has not reached out once to the truckers since they have arrived in this capital city. Now, I find that very hard to understand, because how can you justify going to a measure like an emergency measures where a lot of powers can be imposed upon the citizens when you have not even yourself taken any action to engage, first of all, in dialogue, natural dialogue, to reach out and say, can we sit down and have a talk, see where the major issues lie, and see if there's any common ground. To move just quickly through, and one was struck by the fact that only a couple of days ago the province of Ontario issued an emergency order, and now we have only a few days later the anticipation that the federal government is doing that. Was this all planned? Is this all orchestrated to try to heighten the justify? The other thing that's really bothersome to me, not only as a Canadian, but as somebody who helped craft the Charter of Rights and Freedoms right here in this city a little over 40 years ago, which was a constitutional document which is supposed to be able to stand the test of time. And one of the principles of that charter is that if governments initiate any moves to undermine the freedom of a religion, or the freedom of conscience, or the freedom of thought, or the freedom of expression, or the freedom of movement, of association or assembly, or if they're going to move against life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if they're going to move, or I should say security of the person, they're going to move to try to restrict travel in the nation from me being able to travel across the nation, or any citizen, or they're going to somehow override one's equality before the law. They have to, even if Section 1 does apply, which I would argue it doesn't, they have to demonstrably justify their actions. That's a pretty strong onus. And in the Oates case back in 1986, a judge of the Supreme Court indicated what a high bar that will be for the governments to be able to meet, to eliminate the individual freedoms and rights of Canadians contained in that charter. So there's a great onus upon the government of Canada when they start initiating these kinds of actions, that they must be consistent with the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in all its measures. And remember, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms also says, whereas this country is founded on the principles of the supremacy of God and the rule of law, that this must also come into play. And that the Constitution of this nation, not the Emergency Act, the Constitution of this nation is the supreme law of Canada. So it's within that context that I, as a citizen and a person who was involved in the creation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, must take issue with what I anticipate to be an action against the people of this country through the Emergency Act. This is completely unnecessary to apply to the truckers, and we will, as I said, because I've been informed of this by the trucker leadership, that we will, over the next days and weeks, if this particular declaration moves to the House of Commons and the Senate, that we will actively argue against any such measure being passed by the Parliament of Canada. And we hope that by the end of the day, and that will be 2 or 3 weeks from now, we hope, because we want robust debate and we don't want any closure on this by the Government of Canada, that it will give time for representatives not only of the truckers, but representatives of Canadians from coast to coast to coast to speak about this unilateral, this kind of action that the Government of Canada is taking, you know, killing a fly with a sledgehammer. This is completely and absolutely unnecessary. I'm also very hopeful, because I understand that the Prime Minister and the Government of Canada have consulted with both, or at least informed the opposition parties and have informed the provinces or the premiers. I hope before this day is out that this enactment happens by the government, that they move ahead on their intention to introduce this Emergency Act, that the premiers will come out and say, as I am saying, that this is completely unnecessary, and that they will speak up. Hopefully the members of Parliament before this day is out will speak up. We want to know where every single member stands. No vacillation, no this way, that way, no wiggle room here. We want to hear from all of the members of Parliament and the members of the legislature right across the country, all 14 legislatures. Where do you stand on all of this? And make it clear, because we are at a very historic moment in our history to see this act being invoked for the first time against peaceful demonstration and civil disobedience. So I guess what we're saying is that we're putting the Prime Minister and the Government of Canada on notice. Yes. That they move ahead with what we understand from the press is they're going to do later today, is to enact this declaration of emergency and then bring it to the Parliament of Canada, that we will stand strong as we have to date to oppose these unnecessary moves against the freedoms and liberties of every Canadian.
A question for Tamara? Or for Brian or Tamara, just a quick question. The protest in Windsor ended pretty peacefully. A few arrests, but mostly people just drove away or walked away. What's happening? I mean, could this end the same way as it ended in Windsor? Just people just go based on police coming in?
I don't know what happened in Windsor, so I'm not familiar with that. I know it happened in the last few hours or whatever.
Well, they all left pretty peacefully. Just a dozen arrests. They walked away. They drove away, and it's all clear now. Could this end the same way it ended there, do you think?
Well, as I understand it, if you're saying to me whether if the police start to move in and then everybody walks away, listen, as the truckers have said, as Tamara has said here today, we are going to hold the line.
Hold the line.
Question for Ms. Leach. Today in Coutts, Alberta, the RCMP arrested 11 people who were found having firearms, ammunition, body armor in their trailers at the blockade site. Can you assure people in this community that none of the protesters who were here have firearms in their trucks or vehicles?
I don't believe they do.
I'm asking a question. Do they have does anybody here have firearms in their trucks?
As we know it, crime has gone down in this city since the truckers came. So what you're saying doesn't bear any evidence whatsoever.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Somebody asked. Thank you. Hey, all right. Screw.
Drop that.
That's what we gotta enforce, guys. Stuff like that. People right here. Now we know why they were here. Yeah, and that's how they're gonna run. Aren't exactly Kyle. Hey, shout out to my viewers here, Kyle. What's happening, guys? CTV, right? Kyle here, good gentleman. What's your channel, Kyle? We've got Not 70 as well as Liberty Talk Canada's Odessa Order. Liberty Talk Canada, Not CTV. Kicking ass, getting more views than CTV. CTV people. They kept kicking ass, shaking because exactly CTV. You're only for people for CTV. Right here in front of us, people got welcomed in and they're the ones that somebody yelled at. They're the ones. Money needs that trade across the border. It's common knowledge in Canada that our government. Okay, so very volatile situation. We have a government trying to enact an emergency act, which is much like the War Act. If you remember with the FLQ, his father United enacted this act, and it ended and was a completely different situation. So feeling right now is an awful lot of stress because we have a government that is meant as who are acting on the interests of Canadians. This boils down to how can it tell you that you lose your job, that your children cannot place if they have a shot? Very simple, not let it be. Asked a question that was very disturbing about if there are guns down here. There are, to our knowledge, we don't know of any guns down here. This is a peaceful protest on the hill of Ottawa, Parliament Hill. Our leadership and our Prime Minister has literally become a further arm of tyranny as he is trying to destroy our nation by implying that somehow we are dangerous to society. Your streets down here in Ottawa have never been cleaner, and you know that, city of Ottawa. You know that. Let me show you what's happening. Is anything on this? So who are these people yelling "Tell the truth"?
I'm the Canadians. Sort of people shirt off and rocks type of guy. Me and Buddy here is filming. We've been taken in by a family. We went to a restaurant this morning.
You do. Want a picture?
Yeah, you bet. You bet. The fee is a picture. All right. Could we go to JT? Could we go to Randall's camera, please? It's gone again. All right. We're gonna take this one. I'll go to my feed. I would love it. Yeah, bless your heart. Very still, okay? So a lot of drama is going on at the Hill because there is absolutely no violence that is wanted nor needed against peaceful protesters with family, with love, with Canadian flags, patriotic, standing up for what's right. That's it. Do you know what, Canada? Really, it's coming to the place of we don't just need mandates done. We need Prime Minister Trudeau done. It's not just the mandates. We need this government to fall. We have a corrupt political system. We have judges. We have a court system that is corrupt. A court system that will not rely on science, but will rely on what is politically expedient. That is a problem. Our nation somehow has literally had vipers and snakes come into the beautiful Garden of Canada and have underneath beautiful law, and they have land. And that's, so they're threatening violence. Well, you know what? As Tamara Lich said, we're not going anywhere. We're standing strong. We're peaceful. No one's taking up arms. This is a peaceful demonstration. You need to come to terms with what's happening. Most of Canadians do not want this. You cannot ask people to take a shot or lose their job. Have you lost your ever-loving minds? This is so serious. Our children are at stake. Our grandchildren are at stake. This is every Canadian's, and we're not going anywhere. So you need to decide if you want to do something horrible. You'll go down in history as the worst prime minister of all time. And by the way, you probably already have that title. That's it.
Hi everyone.
Freedom! Freedom! Freedom!
Would you say a couple words to me from my phone?
Yes, I will.
Just do it outside.
Yeah, I'll grab my.
You know, it's not easy to deliver the truth of what our sick world is doing, but for some of us, we feel that we have no choice. Because if we are silent about these abominable things, then we are letting evil go unchecked, and we cannot do that. For those of you wonderful people who are writing me and are sharing your encouragement, I am deeply grateful. Thank you for all the letters that you've been sending. Thank you for the donations and the support. I found out that in order to speak the truth, you have to become very, very strong. If you would go to my website at www.lauralyn.tv, you'll find all of the ways that you can contact me. Remember, my friends, all is well. All is well. Thanks for joining me.